My wife left me for my brother. And as if that wasn't enough to tear my life apart, my parents told me I should understand. I remember standing in my kitchen, staring at the empty chair where she used to sit every morning, coffee mug in hand, while my phone buzzed nonstop with messages from relatives whispering about the scandal. The shock was so deep it almost didn't feel real that my name is Lucas, and I'm 36 years old. I built my life around family, believing loyalty was unbreakable. But that belief shattered the moment I learned that my own wife had been sneaking around with the one person I trusted like no other. My younger brother. It all started one evening when I noticed her acting distant. She claimed she was tired, working late, or not in the mood to talk. I thought it was stress, maybe the usual ups and downs of marriage. Then one night, I borrowed her phone to check the weather. That's when I saw it. A string of messages. The way she wrote to him, the emojis, the late night confessions. It was the kind of intimacy she hadn't shared with me in months. My chest tightened. I scrolled further, my heart pounding louder with each word. There was plans to meet at a hotel. I dropped the phone as if it burned me. My brother's name on that screen was like a knife to the gut. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She just sat there, silent, tears running down her face. And then she whispered, "I'm sorry, but I love him." The betrayal was heavy enough, but the real twist came when I turned to my parents for support. I expected anger, disappointment, maybe even outrage. Instead, my father leaned back in his chair and said, "Lucas, sometimes things happen. You need to understand." Understand? How could I possibly understand that the woman I married and the brother I grew up protecting had been destroying me behind my back? That was the night my family broke apart. And it was only the beginning. The morning after I confronted my wife, I drove to my parents' house. I hadn't slept at all. My hands shook on the steering wheel, my chest heavy with anger and heartbreak. I needed them to listen, to understand the pain I was in. When I walked in, my mom was sitting at the table with my dad, sipping tea like it was just another day. I slammed my keys on the counter and said, "Do you even realize what just happened? Your son stole my wife." My mom looked at me calmly, almost too calmly. "Lucas, please, lower your voice," she said, as if I was the one out of line. Then she added, "It's not about stealing. They just found each other." I couldn't believe it. Found each other? I repeated, my voice breaking. She was my wife for 7 years. He was my brother for 36 years. What about me? What about loyalty? My dad sighed, his tone cold. "Son, life doesn't always go the way we want. Maybe this is for the best. Maybe you should let them be." Let them be? I felt my blood boiling. They weren't just letting them be. They were defending them. Instead of protecting me, their oldest child, they stood behind the two people who had stabbed me in the back. The small climax came when my brother himself walked in. He had the audacity to step inside like he owned the place. My parents didn't yell, didn't scold him. They hugged him. While I stood there, broken, that I shouted, "So this is it? You choose him? You choose them over me." My voice cracked, but no one answered. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but not for me. She cried for him. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just losing a wife. I was losing my entire family. When I finally stood in front of my brother, I felt a storm inside me. He looked nervous at first, but then he smirked like he had already won something. That smirk burned me alive. "Why, Daniel?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why my wife? Out of all the women in this world, why her?" He crossed his arms and shrugged. "Lucas, you were never right for her. She told me everything. How lonely she felt, how you worked too much, how you didn't understand her. We connected in ways you never could." His words hit me like bricks. It wasn't just betrayal, it was arrogance. He acted like he had done me a favor, like he was rescuing her from me. "You're my brother," I shouted. "I protected you when we were kids. I defended you when you got into trouble. I gave you everything I could. And this is how you repay me." For a moment, I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He said, "Love doesn't ask for permission. It just happens." That line made me snap. I stepped closer, my fists clenched. I wanted to hit him, to wipe that smug look off his face. But then my dad's voice thundered from behind us. "Stop it. Both of you." Only it wasn't both of us he was protecting. He stepped between me and Daniel, but his hand rested on Daniel's shoulder. not mine. That small gesture said everything. He had chosen sides, and it wasn't mine. That I left that house shaking, my knuckles white, my teeth grinding. That day, I didn't just lose my wife and my parents. I lost a brother I thought I knew. A week later, the official blow came. A thick white envelope sat in my mailbox, my name printed neatly on the front. I already knew what it was before I even opened it. My wife, or I should say my soon-to-be ex-wife, had filed for divorce. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the papers, my hands trembling. The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. 7 years of marriage reduced to cold legal language. Grounds for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. Those words made me laugh bitterly. Irreconcilable differences? No, it was irreconcilable betrayal. I called a lawyer the same day. His office smelled like dust and coffee, and his desk was stacked with files that looked older than me. He glanced over the papers and said, "She's asking for the house and spousal support. Do you want to fight it? The house? The very home I had worked overtime shifts to pay for? She wanted it handed to her, so she could live there with my brother?" The thought made my blood run cold. Yes, I told him firmly. I'll fight it. I won't let them take everything. The climax of that day came when I got home and saw her car parked in the driveway. She was inside, collecting her things. I walked in, and there she was, filling boxes like nothing had happened. When she saw me, she didn't even look guilty. She said, "This is the cleanest way, Lucas. Sign the papers. Let's move on." I clenched my fists. Move on? With him? In my house? She lowered her head, but didn't answer. Her silence told me everything. She wanted to erase me from my own life. That night, I sat alone on the floor of my half-empty living room. Divorce papers spread in front of me. I promised myself one thing. I wouldn't let them destroy me completely. If they wanted war, they'd get it. The first court hearing came faster than I expected. I wore my best suit, but no amount of fabric could cover the anger and exhaustion carved into my face. When I walked into that courtroom, my heart pounded like a drum. On one side sat my wife, her head held high as if she were the victim. Next to her was my brother, sitting smugly, his hand resting on hers like he owned her. But what stunned me most was the man sitting on their side of the table. Their lawyer, IT, was Mr. Collins, the same lawyer who had once helped me with a property dispute years back. He knew my finances, my work schedule, my weaknesses. He had shared coffee with me in his office while giving advice. And now, here he was, representing them. I leaned toward my lawyer and whispered, "Are you kidding me?" "He's their lawyer." My lawyer nodded grimly. "It's legal. Conflict of interest doesn't apply unless it's the same case." But yes, this complicates things. The hearing started, and my wife's lawyer painted me as a cold, absent husband. He claimed I was rarely home, emotionally distant, and unwilling to provide. I nearly jumped out of my chair. None of that was true. I had worked long hours because I was providing for us. When it was my turn, my lawyer stood and calmly said, "We'll present evidence of infidelity. This is not a case of irreconcilable differences. It's betrayal." He placed a stack of printed messages between my wife and my brother on the judge's desk. The silence in that room was heavy, everyone shifting uncomfortably as the truth spilled into the open. The climax came when my brother couldn't hold his tongue. He stood up shouting, "Yes, I love her. She was never happy with him. She belongs with me." The judge banged his gavel, warning him to sit down. But in that moment, everyone in the courtroom saw them for what they were, traitors who had no shame. I walked out that day feeling bruised but not beaten. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, justice was still on my side. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, my parents stepped in. One evening, they invited me over for dinner. I almost didn't go, but part of me still hoped they'd finally see how wrong everything was. When I arrived, the table was set for 3. Not 4, just me and them. My mom smiled nervously while my dad cleared his throat and said, "Lucas, we need to talk." I sat down, suspicious. My mom reached across the table, her hand brushing mine. "Honey, this fight in court, it's tearing the family apart. Why don't you just let it go?" I pulled my hand back immediately. "Let it go. They betrayed me. They're trying to take my house, my money, everything I worked for. And you want me to just walk away?" My dad's voice grew firmer. Think about your brother. Think about your mother's health. Stress isn't good for her. Is this battle really worth it? The small climax came when my dad leaned closer and whispered, "You're making yourself look bitter. If you keep fighting, you'll be the one the family remembers as cruel, not them." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "So that's it? You'd rather I carry the shame so they can play happy family under your roof? You care more about appearances than your own son?" Neither of them answered. My mom started crying, begging me to understand. The same word that had haunted me from the very beginning that I walked out, slamming the door behind me. On the drive home, I realized something painful but clear. I wasn't just battling my wife and my brother. I was battling my own parents too. And in their eyes, I was already the villain. A few weeks later, I was reviewing my bank statements with my lawyer. We were preparing for the next court date, going through every expense line by line. That's when I noticed something odd. Large withdrawals I didn't remember making. "Wait a second," I said, pointing at the screen. "What's this? $2,000 here, another $1,500 there. And this one, $5,000 in cash." My lawyer frowned. "These look like transfers. Do you share this account with your wife?" I felt my stomach drop. I used to. She had access before all of this. We dug deeper, tracing the dates. And there it was, money quietly funneled out, little by little, months before she left me. Not only that, but one transfer went straight into an account under my brother's name. The realization hit me like a punch. It wasn't just love or lust between them. It was money. My money. They had been planning their future together while draining the life I built that I stormed into their apartment the next day, holding the printouts. My brother opened the door, smirking as usual. I shoved the papers against his chest. "Explain this. You've been stealing from me too." He glanced at them and shrugged. "She needed help. You weren't giving her what she deserved." That word, deserved, made me snap. She deserved honesty. You deserved loyalty. And you gave me nothing but betrayal. The climax came when my wife stepped out from behind him, arms crossed, her face cold. "You'll be fine, Lucas. You always land on your feet. Don't act like a victim." Her words cut deeper than a knife. They hadn't just taken my marriage. They were taking my money, my security, my future. That night, I realized this wasn't only about love or family anymore. It was about survival. And I was done playing nice. From that night on, I became obsessed with collecting proof. Every late-night text, every unexplained transaction, every bank withdrawal, I documented it all. My lawyer told me, "Lucas, if you want to win, we need hard evidence. Emotions won't convince a judge, but facts will." So I started digging. I called the bank, requested full statements, and traced every cent. I found receipts for hotel rooms booked under her name. Rooms that matched the nights she had told me she was working late. I even discovered charges for jewelry, but I never saw that jewelry on her. It was clear who had received it. The climax came when I found an email. She had used our shared computer once and forgot to log out of her account. In that email, she wrote to my brother, "Once this divorce is done and the house is ours, we'll finally have the life we deserve." Reading those words made my hands tremble with rage. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was premeditated theft. They weren't only breaking my heart, they were plotting to strip me of everything I worked for. I printed that email and handed it to my lawyer. His eyes widened. "This changes everything. Judges don't look kindly on conspiracies like this." For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control. They had stabbed me in the back, but I had the knife now, and I was ready to use it. In court, that night, as I laid the documents out on my dining table, I whispered to myself, if they want war, they're about to get it. The next hearing felt different. This time, I wasn't walking in as the broken man everyone pitted. I was armed with evidence, and I was ready to fight. That my wife and my brother sat across from me, holding hands like some twisted love story. Their lawyer, Mr. Collins, smirked as if the outcome was already written. But when my lawyer stood up and handed the judge the thick folder of proof we had gathered, the entire mood in that courtroom shifted. First, the hotel receipts. The judge flipped through them, raising his eyebrows. Then the bank statements, withdrawals that went directly into my brother's account. And finally, the email. My lawyer read it out loud. his voice steady. "Once this divorce is done and the house is ours, we'll finally have the life we deserve." The courtroom fell silent. My wife's face drained of color, and my brother shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Even their lawyers seemed caught off guard. The climax came when the judge leaned forward and said, "Mrs. Parker, are you admitting that these transactions and emails are yours?" She stammered, "I didn't mean it like that." But it was too late. Everyone in the room could see the truth. This wasn't about love. It was about greed. When the session ended, the judge announced that the case would continue, but he made one thing clear. Any claim to spousal support or property division will be closely reviewed given these findings. I walked out that day not as a victim, but as someone finally being heard. For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes, not mine. The last hearing felt like the end of a war. I sat in that courtroom, exhausted but ready. My lawyer laid out the timeline one last time. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every piece of evidence showing how my wife and my brother had betrayed me. The judge didn't take long. His words cut through the silence like a blade. Given the evidence of financial misconduct and infidelity, the court denies spousal support. The house remains in Mr. Parker's possession. Mrs. Parker's claims are dismissed. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. My wife's face twisted with shock, my brother slammed his fist on the table, and my parents sat frozen, unable to look me in the eye. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because I had survived. They had tried to strip me of my dignity, my home, and my future, but in the end, they failed. The climax came later that evening. My parents called, begging me to find forgiveness and keep the family together. I listened quietly, then said no. Family doesn't destroy family. I may be your son, but you chose them over me. That was your decision. This is mine. And I hung up. Now I live in my house alone. It's quieter, lonelier at times, but it's mine. And when I look in the mirror, I see a man who fought back when everyone else wanted him to surrender. Those of you listening, let me leave you with this. Never let anyone convince you that betrayal is something you should understand. Protect your worth, even if it means standing alone. Thank you for staying with me through my story. If my experience spoke to you, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed and left a like. It helps more than you know. And remember, no matter how dark betrayal feels, you can still rise above it.